It's a football Friday. It's a pre-playoff football Friday at that. Means we're building up toward a showdown on Sunday between the Bucks and the Birds in Tampa. First round of the playoffs. Super wild card weekend. I love the way we over discuss. It's the biggest season in the National Football League history because they added one game.
For some reason, Jody, that reminds me. Are you a Looney Tunes fan?
Yeah,
Bugs Bunny.
I wouldn't say I'm Looney Tunes about Looney Tunes, but I watched cartoons when I was a kid.
I was a big Wile E. Coyote guy, and when they would let him talk, because in a lot of ones with the Roadrunner, they wouldn't let him talk, but there was some where it's paired with Bugs Bunny where he could talk, and he would have his business card, and it would say Wile E. Coyote, super genius. That's what Super Wild Card Weekend reminds me of for some reason. About
Wile E. Coyote. He wasn't a master speaker, but yes, he did emphasize the super when given a chance, which, much like with Wile E. Coyote, this is overstated as well. All right, we got one extra game. It's on Monday night. We got to wait a little bit longer to put the weekend to bed, but they have expanded the playoffs, and they expanded the days that they are having the playoffs. The Eagles game falls pretty much in the middle, the sixth game, so you can't have a perfect middle. It's kind of like the NFL season at 17 games now. You can't have a mid-season anymore because it's an odd number of games. Thank you very much, National Football League. Same with the playoffs. Yeah, I like the Sunday at 1.
I love Sunday at 1. I love Sunday at 1.
You have a bigger reason because you have travel included and deadlines and the like. I'm just looking at it from, well, I do have that because I got to be on the air at 6 o'clock on Sunday, but that's when football's supposed to be played. I've been doing this for 50 some odd years, being a fan of the National Football League. That's when your team's supposed to play when you're on the East Coast. Sunday at 1, so I'm glad the Eagles are playing Sunday at 1. And it could actually benefit the Eagles because I double-checked the weather right before I came on. Only a 90% chance of rain in Tampa on Sunday, which means it's going to rain, despite what the coach of the Bucks may say. Oh, give it 10 minutes, it may change. Well, probably not. There's going to be some wetness on the field. I'm seeing definitely rain in the morning, may drift into the afternoon, which means it may be raining while they're playing, or it could just be a slick field. But first time I saw wind declarations of 20 to 25 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Damn.
That's the bigger issue. That's always the bigger issue. I found that NFL teams, and especially good quarterbacks, which I kind of mentioned yesterday, rain doesn't bother them much at all. But wind is what they're concerned about. And yeah, I mean, that's not to the point. You remember the Buffalo game a couple years ago, and you remember Buffalo, New England this year. It's when it's really bad, there's nothing you can do when it comes to throwing the football. So that could be 20 to 30 could have an effect certainly on the passing games, and that part of it would probably be an advantage to the Eagles, I would think. The rain part, as I said, talking to Aaron Rodgers over the years and Tom Brady, I think that would actually be an advantage to Tampa Bay, even though it's counterintuitive. I kind of explained that on yesterday's show. That's what those guys always say. I got to take them at their word, and the fact that, we know where we're going, the defense doesn't know where they're going. So if anybody's going to slip, it's more likely to be the defensive side of the football. So who knows? But it's another little curveball to throw into the mix. I would say if I'm an Eagles fan, I'd be rooting for wind more than rain.
Agreed. I think, despite what Tom Brady says, I hear what he's saying, that yes, it's always an offense advantage that they know what they're going and the defense doesn't. They're reacting more than anything else. Yeah, I'd rather run the ball in the rain. That would be me. In the wind, my head is almost forced that I have to run the ball. And yeah, I think the Eagles can run the ball better than the Bucs can. Although playoff Lenny, I did see some video of him yesterday in Tampa's practice. Looked like he was moving around pretty damn well. Didn't look like a guy who was coming off any hamstring type issues. And he is the key to their running game. They've been okay at running back. The kid Vaughn, draft pick this year, filled in admirably over the last couple of weeks, but he's not as good a player as Leonard Fournette is. So we perceive the Eagles to have an advantage running the ball. I certainly concur with that. I don't know if I would call it a major advantage running the ball if Fournette is good to go.
Well, the Eagles lead the NFL in rushing, so I'm not going to say anybody has the advantage over them when it comes to running the football. But we talked a little bit about why, and it generally relates to the quarterback and the offensive line more than the actual running back. So I guess it depends how you're going to flesh things out. Leonard Fournette has more yards running, and he missed time than any of the Eagles running backs. So, yeah, from a running back standpoint, he's as good as anybody the Eagles have. But I don't think that's what fuels the Eagles running game. I think what fuels the Eagles running game is anybody can run the football. They've proven it. Anybody can run the football behind that offensive line. And then you have the extra headache of dealing with Jalen Hurts, who creates all kinds of issues as that extra person you have to account for when you're stopping the run. So I think it's more of typically I lean towards, if you're going to ask me questions about anything, I lead towards talent over scheme. When it comes to the Eagles rushing attack, I lean towards scheme over talent because they've proven, every single one of them, they've proven they can run the football with Miles Sanders, Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell. Every single one of them, they have proven they can run the football effectively.
That is the strength of the Eagles, is their offensive line getting pushed for their running game. We both agree on that one. Speaking of that running game, did you lay eyes on Miles Sanders yesterday?
I did for a very short period of time. The Eagles, for some reason, the nicest day in Philadelphia in a couple weeks at least, and they went inside the bubble. So the NFL has restricted access again because of the explosion of COVID cases and blah, blah, blah. So anytime they're inside, we're not allowed to watch the small portion of practice we even typically can. So we didn't get to watch practice. All we got to watch is the Eagles walking from the NovaCare complex into the practice bubble. And I did see Miles walking, and he didn't have anything on either hand. No tape, no brace, no nothing. So who knows? He might have had something and put it on when he got in there. But I guess you could say it's a positive sign at least. He certainly looks like he's going to play, no question.
That's why I asked the question, because I saw the same video you did. You saw it with your own two eyes. So Miles Sanders, with no attachments to his hand, we'll have to see if he can play with it. If it is 100%, but that's a very good sign as far as I'm concerned. Now, he did say when the NFL decided the Eagles going to practice inside, you mean the NFL decided you weren't going to be allowed in to see the Eagles practice inside?
The NFL rule is we can't watch when they're inside. The Eagles decided to practice inside.
I just wanted to make sure that maybe I heard it incorrectly. But the NFL didn't decide to stiff you guys. No, the Eagles made that decision themselves. And you're right, it was a nice day and probably a little chilly, but they don't have to worry about that against Tampa, because in rain and in wind, it's still going to be in the 60s. Close to 70 at kickoff on Sunday. So I got no problems with them practicing inside, even though it did limit your ability to see what was going on. Did Josh Sweat make the walk yesterday? Because that is one thing that does concern me as we sit here on the Friday before the Sunday game. Second consecutive day did not participate at all in practice. They're calling it a non-COVID illness. You get any further details? Did you see Josh at all? They can really not afford to have him out of the lineup, John. because I think a key to this game, and it might not favor the Eagles the way the weather might favor the Eagles, it may come down to the team that gets more pressure on the quarterback. The Eagles have to have pressure on Brady. If he is allowed to just sit back there and take his throws from his spots, I think they're in a whole lot of trouble, even if they're down a couple of their weapons on the outside. And one of the few guys, the only guy on the outside who's been getting pressure for the Eagles over the last month has been Josh Sweat. They need him in the lineup on Sunday. Any other tidbits you can add there that Josh is just working through a cold or something like that and should be go on Sunday, or is this legit concern for Eagle fans?
No, I don't think it's a legit concern. Obviously, in today's world, you want to keep players away from other players if they're sick, because the last thing you want is it to start going through the team, the locker room, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think they're being extra cautious. And as we said with Miles, if this were a regular season game, I find it hard to believe Miles Sanders would be out there, but it's not. It's the playoffs, and I think there's no question he's going to try to play. So to me, there's no question that Josh Sweat is going to play on Sunday. The only issue is COVID, and people have said, "Well, has he got COVID?" No, he doesn't have COVID. If he has COVID, he's got to be on the COVID list. So, I think people forget. There are other sicknesses other than COVID, and people and players have been playing with them for years and years and years and years. So, the Eagles don't practice all that much anyway. Let's be honest. They had a walkthrough on Wednesday. They did practice a little bit on Thursday. They even had the pads on, but only to, work on like run fits and both on the offensive side, the defensive side. They weren't hitting or anything of that nature, just to get the feel for it with the pads on. So he's not missing a ton of work, and he's at this stage, he is a veteran player, and I don't think they're concerned about it. Yeah, I expect him to be out there on Sunday. Unless a regular illness turns into a COVID illness, which I don't even know if that's possible.
Nor do I, and it's something we won't know about probably till game time on Sunday. So take us from now until Sunday. Are the Eagles going to practice today? Is it going to be a walkthrough? What time are they flying to Tampa? As we count down the hours to kickoff, what does it look like for the Eagles between now and start of the game?
Yeah, they're going to have a short practice today, typical Friday practice, which is the shortest practice of the week, and then they'll leave for Tampa on Saturday. The Eagles like to be in the opposition city for as short a time as possible. It's a business trip. Nobody's going to Clearwater beach time like Ed Kratz. Who's not going to be on the show today because he needs his Clearwater beach time, so we can rip him about that next week. But yeah, they're not going down there to go to the beach. So just a business trip. And one thing everybody has consistently said, because the Eagles are getting all these questions from Nick Sirianni on down about the Bucs playoff experience, and understandably so, with Tom Brady and Bruce Arians and Rob Gronkowski and down the list. And they've said, to a man, it's like any other week. You prepare like any other week. The minute you go out the minute you try to make it bigger than it is, that's when your eyes get big, and you're probably starting to get starstruck and looking at the other side and looking at number 12, and that's how you get beat. Same as week 6, prepare for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they're next on the schedule.
Easier said than done. More power to them if that's the message the coach is trying to put forth. It's a good one. It's a smart one. Is it a realistic one? We're talking about practice squad guys included, 60-plus guys who know what's up, who know what the score is, who know what the game is. They know that there's only going to be 6 games played this weekend, not 16 games played this weekend. You can say it. You can try and ingrain it into your thinking. Can you really remove it from the thought process totally? that it's not a more important game than the first 17 you played?
I think it's more difficult for the players. I think it's easy for the coaches. I mean, that's, it's easy. They have the same schedule. They have the same schedule they have every week. So from that standpoint, it's easy to not change it and to stay in your lane, so to speak. But yeah, from the player perspective, and I even asked Dallas Goddard, I think I mentioned on the show, I asked him about Gronk. He doesn't even play Gronk, but he's going to be watching Gronk. I mean, he plays the Tampa Bay defense. He never sees Rob Gronkowski on the field. But, when you're a tight end and you got one of the best tight ends who ever played the game on the other side, you're paying attention. You're looking at him. And the same thing with Jalen Hurts, even though, Jalen Hurts is not going to, and he has actually kind of swatted off any questions about Tom Brady and about how playing against perhaps the greatest quarterback of all time. He doesn't even want to go down that route, but he's heard it. He understands the enormity of it. And again, I brought up this number all week: 46 versus 1. 46 playoff start for Tom Brady, first for Jalen Hurts.
There's another number that was kind of hard to swallow today. Tom Brady, 34 playoff victories. The Philadelphia Eagles as an organization in the Super Bowl era, 23 playoff victories.
You could do that to every team, though. That's not fair, Judd. The Eagles are closer than most teams.
Closer than a lot of teams.
Yes.
If it's most, it's just about more than half. There are
Yes.
teams that have had more playoff wins than the Eagles since 1967, I think, was the first Super Bowl. He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are the Mac and Mac Birds 365 duo. We will add a third member. Our buddy Martin Frank will join us coming up next. He's already online. He's ready to rock. That's what we like
Ready
to
to
see.
go. Unlike Kratz, he's going. I think Kratz is on his way to the
He's got
beach.
info.
Yeah.
He's going to tell you how the Eagles are or aren't going to win this game. You're going to have to stay tuned to find out. Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel.
This is Joe Krause of Krause's Coats, inviting you to donate a slightly worn coat or jacket and help veterans stay warm this winter. Go to Krause's Coats on Facebook to help those who've served. Have a happy holiday.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The city of Philadelphia sparkles during the Christmas holiday season with an array of colorful light displays and illuminated Christmas trees, donated or installed for free by the talented electricians of IBEW Local 98. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities at IBEW Local 98, visit us at www.ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
As a hardworking American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
We are the Mac and Mac Birds 365 guys, McMullen and McDonald. We've got a helping hand joining us now from the Delaware News Journal. Martin Frank hops aboard. Martin, you were ready. I saw you waving papers there. Have you figured out who's going to win this football game? Do you have it written down as to how this football game's going to go on Sunday?
I have a pretty good idea how it could go. I think there's a pretty good chance that the Eagles could be playing in Green Bay next weekend.
Wow,
Ooh.
we got positivity. I'm glad, Martin, because I'm not too positive about it, and I think I'm more positive about it than Jody. So why are you looking at this as a chance for the Philadelphia Eagles to shock the world, like Jesse Ventura once did in the state of Minnesota?
Well, a couple of reasons. You look at the Buccaneers, like the last 4 games, and during that time they lost Chris Godwin, their all-star, all-pro wide receiver. Antonio Brown walked off the field, left the team, got released. And Brady hasn't been the same since then. Yeah, he still has weapons. He still has a guy named Mike Evans. He still has Rob Gronkowski and Brashad Perryman and guys like that. But he lost a lot when Godwin tore his ACL. And in that game, they got shut out 9-0. They were also losing to the Jets until like a last-minute rally in the fourth quarter. That was, I think, January 2nd. And, sure they –
game. Yeah,
what's that?
That was a bad game.
Yeah, and they crushed the Panthers this past week, but it's the Panthers. They were pretty much done anyway. So, I think they're a little bit vulnerable. I mean, I think it's going to be a close game either way, but I think if things break right for the Eagles, they could pull it out. I mean, when they first played Tampa Bay in October, they weren't really running the ball. Miles Sanders had 1 carry for 1 yard at halftime, which somebody should have knocked Nick Sirianni over the head. Like, what are you doing and stuff? And I mean, they're a totally different team from that. I mean, Jordan Mailata was playing right tackle because Lane Johnson was away. Andre Dillard was playing left tackle. And the defense was, was a disaster back then. I mean, Brady was picking them apart. I mean, it's possible he could still do that, but he doesn't have 2 of his main weapons. So, I think there's a chance. I think if things break the right way, Miles Sanders if Miles Sanders plays, they got a really good running attack and they're going to use it. And the weather could be kind of, rainy and windy, very windy, right? I think it's supposed to be 20 to 30. So that could affect the passing game. I mean, the Eagles could have a chance.
All right, Martin, I'm going to play partial devil advocate here. You said about the 2 wins toward the end of the season over Carolina. Yeah, but it's the Panthers, which I get. It's the Panthers.
Right.
How about the Eagles' 9 wins this year? Which one do you not say, yeah, but in front of?
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, there definitely is that. I mean, you look at a lot of things like that. I mean, earlier in the year, they were getting shredded by good quarterbacks, and they hadn't played a good quarterback in the last 9 games. I
Except Dak, and that doesn't count because it was the varsity against the JV.
Right. But, I mean, it was still, Dak going against the Eagles defense, and he shredded them and stuff. But, yeah, like you said, it was the JV. Yeah, I mean, there's still that possibility. I mean, I'd like to think the Eagles defense is better though than they were when they first played the Bucs, and Yeah, I mean, Brady could still have a big game and everything, but he doesn't have the same weapons that he had back then. I know Gronkowski didn't play, but he still had Godwin, he still had Antonio Brown, he had Mike Evans, and it just hasn't been the same. So I'd like to think the Eagles defense has gotten a little bit better since then, and the Bucs offense has gotten a little bit worse. So maybe there's like a middle ground where they can kind of keep them under control, at least keep the game close enough where they'd have a chance to win. And you take into account the 20 to 30 mile an hour winds could affect Brady's passes.
Okay, Martin, I'm going to jump in with Jody and play a little devil's advocate as well. You mentioned, and no question, I mean, I think people forget how big Antonio Brown was in that game against the Eagles. He was pretty dominant, and obviously he's gone off the rails. And he mentioned Chris Godwin, who's his big third down, sort of moved the chains guy, or had been. So there's no doubt that they've lost some of their top tier playmakers. But one guy they haven't had, and who looks like he's coming back, we mentioned Miles Sanders in Philadelphia, is Leonard Fournette, as they call him down there, Playoff Lenny. And I just found out today that Leonard Fournette, in his last 6 playoff games, has scored a touchdown in each. And he's got 8 over that entire span. So Tom Brady's getting him back. And, as you mentioned, he didn't have Gronk in the first game in week 6. Now Gronk is amping up. He's had 250 plus receiving yards over the past 2 weeks. He doesn't have the same guys. He's got different guys, but he's still got some playmakers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tom Brady is a good quarterback. He's the best of all time. Some people call him the GOAT. So yeah, I mean, Brady's been in all kinds of these situations before, and that's, another thing. The Eagles defense, they might try disguises and, whatnot, but Brady has seen all that. He knows how to pick it apart, and, maybe he will. I mean, it's very possible. I mean, the Bucs have a great offensive line, and the Eagles didn't touch them at all the last game, and they might not touch them again, although they need to if they want to win. But yeah, I mean, it's still very possible the Bucs could, put it all together. But I just think in this one game and everything, the Eagles have a lot of things working in their favor, and that includes the fact that they don't have Godwin, they don't have Antonio Brown. The weather could be pretty bad, to affect the passing game. And if the Bucs have to become a running team, that's not their strength either. I mean, Leonard Fournette is effective because teams have to focus so much of their attention on their big play receivers. And it's possible that, if they have to run the ball, I don't know if Fournette's that guy who's going to get 100 yards on the ground, unlike the Eagles, where if they can run the ball effectively, and they should, then maybe that keeps Brady off the field too, and he doesn't have as many chances.
All right, Martin, you're right. This Eagle team that'll be playing on Sunday is not the same Eagle team that got beat by the Bucs back in week number 6. We certainly know the difference on offense. They made a concerted decision and change from a pass-heavy offense to a run-heavy offense, and it has worked famously for them. You said you also believe the defense is better. Why?
I just think that they've had more time to learn Jonathan Gannon's system. I mean, when they played the Buccaneers, it was back in week 6, and he wasn't really blitzing as much. He wasn't really making adjustments on the fly. And I think as the season went on after that, he started doing both things a little bit more. I mean, he showed different looks. He disguised more. He sent more blitzes. No, he didn't become blitz-happy defensive coordinator or anything like that. But, I mean, I think they were more effective in that. And like, we've been saying earlier, maybe all of that is a product of playing against really bad quarterbacks and bad teams. And maybe that made them look better than they are. I mean, that's the big unknown going into Sunday. We're going to find out if the defense really is that much better, or if they've just been playing so much inferior competition that, it had to be that way. So, yeah, I mean, but I do think they're better. I mean, Darius Slay has been awesome this year. He's been a Pro Bowl. He was named to the Pro Bowl and is definitely deserving of that. the defensive line has gotten better. Fletcher Cox kind of has played better in December. Hargrave has been great pretty much all year, except for like he had a middle of the season kind of lull. Sweat has been good. I mean, he's been out all week and hasn't practiced all week, but I'd like to think that he'll play. I mean, and Barnett's been up and down, but he could have a big game as well. So I just think they're better overall, and I think if things work their way, they could win.
For people who are obsessed with the pass rush, and let's be honest, that's most of Philadelphia, Martin, because they have a history, and we can go back to Buddy Ryan, if you want to go back to Marion Campbell, and all the way up to Bud Carson and Jim Johnson. They want a pass rush. They want a pass rush. They want aggression. You're not going to get to Tom Brady. I mean, there are certain quarterbacks. Peyton Manning was like this as well. You're not going to sack him a lot. He's too smart. He processes too quickly, gets the football out of his hands. So how do you combat that? I want you to put your JG hat on and wish me a happy Tuesday and tell me, how the heck do you combat that? Because you're not getting to the guy. You're not sacking the guy multiple times. Now, you could do it in a big moment like Brandon Graham did and win you a big game, but you're not going to do it consistently. So how do you get to that point where you can make the big splash play in one moment to win a football game?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I mean, a lot of teams have been trying to figure that out for the last 22, 23 years. But basically what you have to do is maybe not necessarily sack Brady, but you have to make him get rid of the ball. Now, he's also great at getting rid of the ball like quickly in 2.5 seconds or less. So, you have to pretty much put pressure on Brady so he's kind of like off his spot. He's making an off-balance throw. He's getting rid of the ball before he really wants to. And, you have to stop his checkdowns because he's great at that. If he's not able to throw deep, then he's going to look for, Gronk underneath. He's going to look for Fournette or Giovanni Bernard, who's probably coming back this week as well. Those guys are good receiving running backs and everything like that. So, yeah, it's hard. And if he does complete his checkdowns, you got to hold those guys to maybe 7 or 8 yards and keep them from getting like 12 to 15, running after the catch and all that. It's a tall order to be sure, but that's another thing that, you have TJ Edwards, who's been playing a lot. I don't think he played at all in the first game. I think it was Eric Wilson and Alex Singleton.
He was in the mix, but he was a rotational player at that point.
It's going to take a total team effort, and I just, we'll find out, I guess, is the big question. I mean, obviously you can't really stop Brady, but you can do things to limit his effectiveness. If he's completing like 5, 6, 7 yard passes as opposed to 12 to 15 to 20 and everything like that, the Eagles will be happy with that. I mean, even if he is still completing a high percentage, which he typically does, but at the same time, you got to make him uncomfortable, and maybe that's not sacking him because obviously he doesn't get sacked very often. I think he's only been sacked 22 times this year, something like that. But you do have to put pressure on him. You can't let him stand there all day and, find his guys because he'll pick you apart that way.
Martin, good news, bad news scenario. The good news is the Eagles are 6-3 on the road this year. That's a pretty damn good road record, considering they were 3-5 at home. To go 6-3 on the road, pretty impressive. The problem is Tampa's 7-1 at home this year. So the Eagles have proven they can win away from the Link, but the Bucs have also proven they're pretty darn tough in their home stadium. The crowd, I've said this a couple times already here on Birds 365 this week. I think Eagle Nation is one of the best fan bases in the entire National Football League, and they take their act on the road. A lot of Eagle fans love getting away to road games, playoff games, since they had no playoff games last year. They'll be up for this one. What kind of a Eagle occupation do you think is going to go on percentage-wise in the crowd in Sunday's game?
Well, It's an interesting question because A, Eagles fans, like you said, like to travel, and B, they love to travel to Florida and the Tampa Bay Clearwater area. They're very familiar with because obviously they go down there every spring for Phillies spring training. So I think there will be a lot of Eagles fans there. I'm not sure if all of them are going to be getting into the game because I think the Bucks fans show up too. So you could see maybe 20%. I'd like to think, and that's not that's a good number.
Not terrible.
Yeah, all things considered, because I'm sure it's going to be hard to get a ticket. I mean, the Buccaneers have been playing so well, obviously, that they sell out all their games now and stuff. But the Eagles fans will be down there. They'll be in the parking lots. They'll be out at the beaches. They'll be, all over Tampa Bay or Tampa. Saturday night and everything, Sunday morning. You'll see them. They might not all get into the game, but they'll be there.
Yeah, they definitely will. And they'll be on my flight. So no Fly Eagles watching. And yours as well, Martin.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you credit for this, Martin, because you're the first person I think I saw who noticed it, at least. And by the way, make sure you read Martin at DelawareOnline.com, Delaware News Journal. In the Eagles game notes this week, they had a little bit of fun with the puns, flower power section, fertile ground game, sprouting offense, defensive yard work. Hurts so good, SOW, not your garden variety birds. They had a lot of fun putting together the notes this week. But we talked about Nick Sirianni and his turnaround. And we've said first playoff game for Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback. Well, this is the first playoff game for Nick Sirianni as a head coach. And he's going against a guy who's done it before at a high level, and Bruce Arians. So there's an experience gap there. Not to mention Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator down there, Byron Leftwich. Guys are getting head coaching interviews all over the place. What do you see in this coaching matchup? We're saying Hurts versus Brady. How about this young coaching staff against maybe the deepest coaching staff in the NFL?
Well, I mean, you could see that Nick Sirianni is blooming into a decent head coaches here. I mean, you look at the I think there were 7 head coaches who were hired last year. I mean, Sirianni is the only one of them in the playoffs. He and Brandon Staley, I think, are the only 2 who had a above 500 record. So, yeah, I mean, Arians has been around forever. I mean, even before he became a head coach, he was an assistant with the Colts. He was an assistant with the Steelers on their Super Bowl teams, like in the 2000s. So, yeah, that's a big, Arians has the experience advantage, just like Tom Brady has it over Jalen Hurts. But, you look at Sirianni has definitely improved as a coach. He's got the guys believing in him with his flower power. And, I mean, that's what you need. I mean, the veterans had to buy in for the Eagles to be a success this year. And to a man, I mean, Kelsey, you look at Lane Johnson, even Fletcher Cox. I mean, he had his issues with Jonathan Gannon early in the season. He's a big believer. I mean, those guys have been to the Super Bowl before. Those guys have been in a bunch of playoff games, and they have that kind of experience that they can share with the younger players and everything like that. And, it's kind of like the same with Sirianni. I mean, yeah, he's a first-time head coach, but he's been in the playoffs before with Frank Reich in Indy, and I'm not sure if he made the playoffs with the Chargers. He might have. I don't.
Yeah, he had to, 1 or 2.
Yeah,
because he mentioned he's in 7. He was in 7 play-in games, so he's been there with the Chiefs under Todd Haley, Chargers, Colts. But head coach, it's a little bit different. And obviously, first for Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen's been a coordinator before. But when you look at the experience on the other side, it's not as damning as the quarterback versus quarterback, but it's still a pretty wide gap as well.
Right. And one thing about the quarterback situation is Jalen Hurts has never played in an NFL playoff game, but he's played in 2 national championship games, and he's been to the college football playoffs a third time when he was at Oklahoma. So, you know, it's not like he's never been in a big game before. He's just never been in an NFL playoff game.
Yeah. And in some ways, the national championship is bigger than a wild card, even a super wild card weekend.
Martin, I've got a crystal ball question for you. You point out that Tom Brady is down a couple of his key weapons from earlier in the season, and that's accurate. The guy went out a really good year before getting hurt, and Antonio Brown might be the biggest whack job in the National Football League, but he produced against the Eagles, as a matter of fact, in that Thursday night game earlier this year. So if you look at the Bucs now, their two main receiving threats are Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski. If you look at the Eagles, their two main receiving threats are Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert. Taking those four out of the mix, what other receiver on either team has a chance to make a big play? Maybe the deciding play in this game. The Bucs are reduced, but the Eagles haven't been great all year other than their top two. Who's the guy who's going to step up and be big?
You know, that's an interesting question because they are kind of similar in that respect, in that like each team's best receivers are a top receiver and then B, a tight end. But I mean, the Bucs are also deeper at tight end. I mean, they have Cameron Brate, they have OJ Howard, you know, so they can hurt you with like three different tight ends. And Brashad Perriman has been around the league. I mean, he's a good receiver as well. I mean, he's definitely better than, you know, the second and third receivers for the Eagles and Jalen Reagor and Quez Watkins. So I would still give the Bucs the edge in that regard. I mean, they're just deeper than the Eagles at receiver. But I mean, Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert can definitely hold their own against, you know, Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski. So I'm not saying they're as good as both of those as Evans and Gronkowski, but they're not, you know, they're definitely in that range. So, but yeah, the Bucs definitely have a deeper receiving core even without Godwin and Antonio Brown.
It kind of mirrors, though, Martin. It kind of mirrors the Eagles in that way, as you mentioned. The Eagles' passing game, to a large extent, since they made the shift, has been Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, and maybe somebody else who get it every once in a blue moon. Right. The Bucs aren't that bad, but it's Mike Evans and Gronk. So how would you go about sort of dealing with that, as those are the two guys you have to stop? Right. And a lot of people say just put Darius Slay on Mike Evans, bracket Gronk. You could go the other way, though, and you could say completely shut down whoever the other receiver is, Brashad Perriman, Tyler Johnson with Darius Slay, bracket Mike Evans, throw a village at Gronk. How would you go about trying to stop those two dominant receivers on Tampa Bay?
Well, I would definitely put Slay on Mike Evans, and I would bracket Gronk, and, you know, see if guys like Scotty Miller and Perryman can beat you, because you know, Steve Nelson on the other side isn't bad either. You know, he could pretty much take out the number two guy, or at least, you know, be decent. But the one thing you mentioned is how, like, you know, the Eagles and Bucs kind of mirror each other now with the, you know, one wide receiver and one top tight end. But the difference is the Eagles also have the running game, so they're not as dependent on those, you know, two guys to do everything as much as the Bucs are. I mean, if you take out Mike Evans and you bracket Gronkowski and you make it tough for Brady to, you know, get the ball off as quickly as he wants to and everything, and, you know, he doesn't have as many places to go with it. The Eagles, on the other hand, if you shut down Devontae Smith and you bracket Dallas Goedert, which teams have obviously tried to do in the last several weeks, well, you know, you give the ball to Miles Sanders, you give the ball to Jordan Howard, you give the ball to Boston Scott. I mean, all those guys will be able to play. We're assuming Miles Sanders will be able to play, but I think he will. You have a totally different situation on your hands because the Eagles have exploited that, and the Buccaneers haven't been proven haven't proven yet that they can take advantage if you shut down their top 2 receivers or try to shut down their top 2 receivers. We're not sure yet exactly how they compensate for that because we haven't seen it.
Martin, a lot of times, most times, and rightfully so, we look at these matchups from the top down. Let me change the perspective, and sometimes you can pick up a nugget about this. The most embarrassing loss by each of these 2 teams. The Bucs got shut out by the Saints just 4 or 5 weeks ago, 9-0. The Eagles just got beat by the dead in the water New York Giants in the last month of the season as well. Which is the more embarrassing loss?
Oof. They're both awful. I think the Eagles' loss isn't quite as bad because that was like 6 weeks ago, and they've won they won 4 straight after that until the Cowboys game, which didn't really count. The Bucs were shut out on, I think that was the game where Godwin tore his ACL, right? I mean, it was like in the first half.
They lost a bunch of guys. They lost Fournette in that game.
Oh yeah, I think Evans left that game too.
Yeah. They lost they lost Fournette. They lost one defensive player. I can't remember. They lost a bunch of people in that game.
Yeah. I think Evans went out and somebody else too. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it was, but I'm not sure if the Bucs have fully recovered from that, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. Like, I saw them play, the game Antonio Brown left against the Jets. I mean, they were losing the entire game. I mean, they won in the last minute or two. I mean, that would have been an awful defeat. They had another tough game before that. They beat the Panthers in the last game, but the Panthers were pretty much done.
I hate to keep going back to this. You said the Eagles have won 4 in a row. Giants, Washington football team, Giants.
Yeah,
same thing, right?
Yeah, and they were losing, I think, in each of those other games. Like they fell behind
Washington
to Washington, and they had their whole team depleted by COVID. That was like their 4th quarterback. They fell behind the next week, I think, to the Giants. Was it also 10-0? And they came back.
And then they fell behind Washington
again. Yeah, but Washington, both of those teams obviously aren't very good. So yeah, I mean,
but you bring up a good point, Martin, because if you get 10-0, if you get down 10-0 to the Washington football team with Garrett Gilbert, you're not going to panic because if your defense settles down. If you get down 10-0 to this team, it's not stopping. They're not going to not score again the rest of the game. So how important is it to stop that sort of recent trend of slow starts and get the lead against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Oh, it's imperative. I mean, if you're down 10-0 to Brady in the first quarter, might as well start heading back to Philly because it's pretty much going to be over. And they absolutely can't get off to a slow start, which they have been doing the past, several games and everything like that. So, yeah, I mean, that's the one caveat to the fact of this being, this could be a close game and could possibly go in the Eagles' favor is you can't get off to a slow start. If you keep doing that like you did against Washington twice and the Giants, they're pretty much done. I mean, if Hurts has to become strictly a passing quarterback throwing 30 to 40 times, the Eagles can't win that. So
let me see if you're with me on this one, Martin. And it's kind of a preemptive protection of Nick Sirianni. The Eagles decided to go with their JV team last week, although Nick at times seemed a little defensive when he was asked about all the guys on the COVID list. They got COVID. What do you want from me? It was a strategy, and it was a loophole that the Eagles used, and I think quite wisely myself. If they get beat by 2 touchdowns in this game, that the critics are going to be out en masse saying, why were the Eagles stupid? They needed to stay at 4. They had won. Martin Frank told me they won 4 games in a row. Why didn't we make it 5? Why didn't we beat the Cowboys? They're going to be second-guessed all hell. if they either win or stay competitive, nobody's going to go. And, it was that smart move by the Eagles to keep all their players on the bench and throw the practice squad out there for the last game. It'll be much worse if they lose. They'll get crushed for it. They'll get minimal credit for it if they actually win. They do the right thing on Sunday by sitting as many guys as they did.
I think they did. Yeah, I agree with you, Jody. I think the thing is with, you look at the NFL schedule. I mean, only one team gets a bye. And no, the Eagles weren't going to get a bye no matter what. But this is like the only chance to rest. If you have a spot clinch, this is the only chance to rest your players going into the playoffs. And you look at the guys who rest. I mean, Jalen Hurts has been playing the past month on a bad ankle. Miles Sanders had the broken hand. Yeah, they had a bunch of guys on COVID, but those guys were also banged up a little bit too, and probably, dealing with some kind of injury. I mean, a lot of those guys were veteran guys. Jordan Howard had the stinger. Boston Scott had been getting a lot of use lately and stuff. I mean, those guys probably needed a break. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with resting as many of those guys as you can. I mean, that's always the possibility that, they can get blown out and you can say, well, those guys were rested. They didn't keep the momentum going. But you look at it the other way. I mean, you look at the Dallas Cowboys, when they played the Eagles, they had all those guys in until, well into the third quarter, maybe the fourth. And you saw the hit that Dak Prescott took from Milton Williams in that game. I mean, I was surprised Dak Prescott got up from that hit. I mean, it was pretty tough. And what happens if you're a Cowboys fan and let's say, Prescott, sprains an ankle or like breaks a rib and he can't play this Sunday against the 49ers, then are all the Cowboys fans saying, Mike McCarthy, what are you doing?
They're killing him. Yeah. If Dak goes into the game this week, Mike McCarthy's a dead man.
I think that was a much bigger risk than what the Eagles did. I mean, I think what the Eagles did was smart. I think the Cowboys, fortunately for them, I mean, none of those guys got hurt, but they easily could have. And Dak took a pretty tough hit. I mean, and what's the point? I mean, Dak's played all year. Ezekiel Elliott has played all year. I think the only guys who sat out, key guys, were Tony Pollard, Trevon Diggs, Micah Parsons, and stuff like that. But pretty much all their guys played, and they definitely took a risk by doing it. And I hope it's worth it for them. But if they lose that first game to the 49ers, you can make the same argument like, hey, those guys never got a break. They were really tired. Why'd you play them against the Eagles? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking going on. So I guess we'll have to find out after Sunday how much that impacted it. But it could definitely go the other way too.
I guess nobody wanted to see Cooper Rush, Martin. Nobody, even Cooper Rush probably. But all right, Martin, we started this interview, and make sure you follow Martin on Twitter at MFrankNFL. Great Eagles beat writer for the Delaware News Journal, DelawareOnline.com. You said the Eagles had a chance. I'm going to pin you down. I don't want this chance. I think you might be trying to do a little psychological game because you don't want to go to Green Bay in January. Who's going to win this game? Eagles, Buccaneers. Pin you down. Not to have a chance. Who's going to win?
All right. Well, since I opened by saying, I think the Eagles can win, I will say the Eagles will win.
Wow.
And I think they're going to do it. It's going to be obviously a close game. I mean, but I think the weather conditions are going to have an impact. The wind is going to keep Brady's, passing ability down. I think the Eagles are going to be able to run the ball on the Buccaneers. And I know the Bucs have like the third best rush defense in the NFL. But, this is a totally different Eagles team. And, they're healthy on the offensive line. Well, relatively. I mean, they got their main guys in the offensive line. So I think the Eagles can pull this out like 27-24. If the Eagles have to control the clock, obviously, and keep Brady off the field as much as possible. But I think not having his two main guys in Godwin and Brown, and not being able to run the ball as much, and the Eagles being able to keep the ball away from Brady, I think that's going to make the difference.
Well, then, Martin, you better give the long underwear to the wife to get ready for Green Bay next week, because if the Eagles win, drop the title down.
Yeah, I know.
He'll suck it up to keep working for another weekend season. Martin, great stuff. Thanks for coming on, buddy. We'll touch base again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Our pleasure. Martin Frank, the first. A lot of people are making the argument for the Eagles and pointing out the places where the Eagles might have an advantage from way back in week number 6 and what's happened with both teams, and rightfully so. Not that many are actually going so far that they're actually picking the Eagles to win. Give Martin Frank credit for that. He's picking the Birds to beat the Bucks. All right, we'll continue to talk about the big matchup next hour, about 25 minutes from now. We'll get our buddy Paul Domowitch, Philly Mag and 33rd Team NFL, up with us here on Birds 365.
This is Joe Krause of Krause's Coats, inviting you to donate a slightly worn coat or jacket and help veterans stay warm this winter. Go to Krause's Coats on Facebook to help those who've served. Have a happy holiday.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The city of Philadelphia sparkles during the Christmas holiday season with an array of colorful light displays and illuminated Christmas trees, donated or installed for free by the talented electricians of IBEW Local 98. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities at IBEW Local 98, visit us at www.ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
As a hardworking American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Mac guys here on Birds 365. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, Paul Domowitch is going to join us coming up in a little over 20 minutes from now, and he'll give us his insights to the Bucks and Birds matchup in Super Wild Card Weekend down in Tampa. And yeah, we'll continue to talk about the Birds, but I do want your take on this, Johnny Mac. Was watching the NFL Network this morning, last night as well. Maybe it was ESPN. David Culley, the head coach of the Houston Texans, was given his walking papers last night. And understandably, the media outlets felt the need to point out that starting this season, there were 3 African-American head coaches in the National Football League. We're down to 1, Mike Tomlin, because Flores got fired in Miami and Cully got fired yesterday in Houston. And is the National Football League once again understaffed when it comes to minority hirings? The Rooney Rule will be discussed at length again. It's just a really bad look. Here's my problem. I think Flores did a pretty good job this year. He won 7 friggin' games in a row. Now, I know he started at 1-7, but he won 7 in a row. And then after they got eliminated, went out and beat the Patriots, who would try and beat them the last week of the season. I don't think the guy should have been fired. I don't give a you-know-what about his skin color. They completely took apart the Texans this year. They paid their quarterback $38 million to not play for them. What the hell was David Culley supposed to do? I don't care about the ethnicity of either of the 2 guys. I don't think either one of them should have been fired. I don't think they did that bad a job to get fired. Then you add that into the mix, and both of these organizations are going to come under scrutiny, if not criticism. Am I off base here? Am I defending guys who shouldn't be defended? I know in both cases, they couldn't get along with the general manager. There was internal strife and the like Jeff Lurie last year saying, Doug Peterson and we didn't see the going forward. Doug wanted to win this year. Shame on the Eagles for winning this year, because that's what Jeff Lurie was looking for. He was looking for a transitional year. Isn't that the same thing every year that you're trying to win? What the hell did Cully and Flores do wrong to lose their jobs?
Well, they didn't get along with the people in power. And I think people forget that. And it's interesting that you brought up Doug, because I think it's a good comparison. If the owner doesn't agree with you, if you lost the year of the owner, so to speak, well, you're done. I mean, you're done. If you don't get along with your boss, and really one guy has that power in an organization, and that was what happened in Miami as well, and in Houston. The thought process was, or at least what they're saying is, they wanted offensive changes. David didn't want to agree to them, and then you go in a different direction. I think each case is obviously individual, but then as you get to the bigger picture and the fact that, well, there's 8 openings, but right now, or how many? What are we? 7 or 8? I don't even know at this point.
Cully makes 8.
Yeah. So that's 25% of the league. So I do think people should wait. Let's say if Brian Flores gets the job in Houston, or because people have already speculated because Nick Caserio and the New England connection, or it might be Gerard Mayo getting his first job. Then again, it might be Josh McDaniels. So I do think you have to wait, but people don't want to wait. And see where the number is. If that number is 1 of 32, yeah, it's a disaster if Mike Tomlin is the only African-American coach. But, if Brian Flores gets another job, if Gerard Mayo gets a job, who knows, somewhere else in some other city gets a job, all of a sudden the numbers look a little bit better and it's not quite as bad. So, one, I think you should wait. But if you look at each individual, the one thing each individual situation usually has in common is that the owner, the guy in charge, has lost confidence in the head coach for whatever reason. And I think that's what people hire who they're comfortable with. And you look at the owners in this league and they hire who they are comfortable with. I don't think an individual, Jeffrey Lurie is probably the greatest example of this. Jeffrey Lurie might be one of the 2 or 3 most progressive owners, however you want to define that in the NFL. I don't think he's hired a black coordinator, never mind a head coach, since Ray Rhodes, his first. I I think I'm correct on that. And if someone wants to correct me, Todd Bowles was here, but he was an interim defensive coordinator. So, anybody who knows Jeffrey Lurie isn't going to be, that guy's not going to. And there's plenty, Catherine Race, we talked about her. She's getting the first woman to be interviewed, to be requested for an interview for a GM job. Brandon Brown's getting interviewed for a GM job. There's plenty of minorities in positions of power in Philadelphia, but in the high-profile coaching positions, it hasn't worked out. Each situation is individual, but we are where we are in this society, and everybody hates everybody, and they want to scream at everybody, and that's just what it is. I mean, here's how I compare it. I'm going to go on a 2-minute political rant, and I'm going to use the Jets as an indication. If politics were the NFL, it would be like Jets fans arguing with Jaguars fans about who's better. Well, maybe you're better than the other team on a given day or a given week, or in this case, a given issue. But the bottom line is you both stink and nobody wants to hear from either of you. That's where we are in society.
Well, here's what bothers me the most. What the hell did they expect from David Culley? I understand.
Well, not that he was hired to be fired, but that was part of it as well. I understand
the owner's call, and he might not have felt comfortable. He felt comfortable enough to give him the job 12 months ago. So what did he do wrong in 12 months? They were a team with a roster, with the Deshaun Watson situation being what it is, who we realistically thought could lose them all. That when they won opening week against Jacksonville, which we knew also could be pretty bad, we go, all right, there's their one win. They beat Jacksonville at home. Here come 15 straight losses. They beat the Chargers and they beat the Titans. And the Titans might end up in the Super Bowl. And used to beat them in the middle of the season. I think the guy had a hell of a year. Yeah, I know he only won 4 games, but 2 of them were against teams he was supposed to have no right beating. Yet he's done in 12 months. He gets 1 year with no quarterback to show whether he deserves to be an NFL head coach or not. You hired the guy. We knew what the issues were with Culley when he came in. He's been an assistant forever. He's been a guy in the league forever, and he had never gotten a head coaching job before. Why now? Okay, he's not a guy who's in for the long term. Did anybody say 12 months? We just want you to be who were you calling a crash test dummy earlier this year?
Well, it was it's
Eagle wide receiver.
Jalen Reagor when he was blocking in 13 personnel.
Right. Protect Devontae Smith. Get him the hell off the field on running plays. Put the crash test dummy Jalen Reagor out there. Is that what David Culley was? A crash test dummy?
Yeah,
that he was there just for a year to get the snot beat out of him before they moved on to another coach?
Here's the thing, and I've had this with one. He's a well-paid crash test dummy because he's coming away from this with $22 million. $22 million, Jody. When he was hired, everybody knew he was a short-term hire. I mean, he was hired to be fired, and then when he get back heading in the right direction, they were going to go in a different direction. So only David Culley knows if the bullet point on his resume is worth it. He'll forever be known as an NFL head coach now. Only he can answer that question. I have no idea how he feels. I do think it was unfair that he was fired. I do think he overachieved with perhaps the worst roster in the NFL. I agree with all that. On the other hand, as I said, he's going to be able to get a job as an assistant rather easily. And he's got $22 million in his pocket to be an NFL head coach. I don't think it's also the worst thing in the world, to be honest. So it depends how you look at it, but I agree with you. At the end of the day, he overachieved, and he shouldn't, and he doesn't deserve to be fired. But I said the same thing about Doug Peterson. From an outside looking in, you can't fire a head coach 3 years after a Super Bowl. But the bottom line is, Jody, if you're the boss, I'm the boss, Joe Kraus is the boss, and you don't get along with somebody and you're in charge, it's your show. You can do what you want. And too many firings in the NFL come down to that. And there's not logic to them. There's not, you're not thinking about continuity or things of that nature. You're just not getting along with your employee, or your employee's not doing what you want them to do, and you go in a different direction. And then as the boss, you get killed for it, or you get praised for it, or whatever. But that's what it always comes down to.
Correct. And bringing it back home to the Eagles, yeah, I didn't think Doug Peterson deserved to be fired. The one thing that I continued to harp on was the one thing I thought Jeff Lurie could do and would be wrong about was make a decision on the head coach and general manager and split the baby, which is exactly what he did. He fired the coach and kept the GM. I said, you do one of two things. Either you go clean house and you fire both Roseman and Peterson, or you give them both one more shot. To decide one was more responsible for the going backwards of the Eagles last year, I thought was off base. So, yeah, I was critical of Jeff Lurie, but to give him credit, he did hire a good coach. He picked Nick Sirianni out when Sirianni was not.
And let me say this, because I've said this a number of times, and I still say I don't think Doug Peterson deserved to be fired. But I will say this: if Doug Peterson did what Jeffrey Lurie told him to, he wouldn't have been fired. He wouldn't have been fired. Now, he had to do what the owner wanted him to do, and that was not hire Press Taylor, not hire Matt Burke or Corey Unlin. And he had to go in a different direction and get a certain offensive coordinator that Jeffrey Lurie would have approved of, and a certain defensive coordinator that Jeffrey Lurie would approve of, which would have probably, to be honest, been Jonathan Gannon. If he would have done that, he'd still be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. He said, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to stand my ground. And that's Doug's decision. He could have kept his job if he did what the owner said. He didn't want to do it. Now, I think Jeffrey Lurie, my personal opinion is Jeffrey Lurie should have given Doug Peterson the rope. And then if it doesn't work with Press Taylor, if it doesn't work with Matt Burke, then fire him. Then I have no issues with it. Either way, though, he could have kept his job if he did what the owner said.
But here's the one thing I don't understand, John, and maybe you can enlighten me. It looks like the makeup of the current Philadelphia Eagles staff has some major Nick Sirianni influence all over it. That these were guys that Sirianni knew, worked with elsewhere, had a relationship, had previous encounters with.
It does, and it doesn't, though, Jody. Like Shane Steichen, yes. Kevin Patullo, undoubtedly. That's the guy closest to Nick Sirianni. Jonathan Gannon, they have a history, but the Eagles were looking to hire him no matter who the head coach was. Jeff Stoutland, that was a big thing of Howie Roseman. Jeff was on his way to Alabama, man. And Howie said, you got to keep Jeff Stoutland. We got to keep Jeff Stoutland. Brian Johnston, the quarterback's coach. That's a Howie Roseman move. That's, that was Nick didn't even know Brian Johnson. So yes and no. Certainly more, I would say, than Doug. But there's a lot of pieces on this coaching staff. And then you go down to Nick Rollis, who's the linebackers coach. That's more of a Gannon hire. So, you sort of go down the scale. Denard Wilson, it's more of a Howie Roseman hire, the secondary coach. So there's, the people closest to Nick on the offensive side of the ball, unquestionably, those are his guys. But there's a lot of pieces that Jamal Singleton was Howie Roseman hire as well. So there's some and there's some that aren't.
And the coaching staff will get their crack at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming up on Sunday. And although both John and I have sat here and praised the Eagles staff, certainly Sirianni, maybe a little more heavy-handed on the praise for Gannon for McMullen than McDonald, but I acknowledge that the numbers are in Gannon's favor. The overall numbers for the season, even including the last game playing the JV, did not move the needle all that much. So you go, what the hell were the Eagles doing on defense this year? I'm not one who has to have Buddy Ryan-like defenses to be successful or to be beloved here in Philadelphia. Just talk about the results with me. And Gannon's results were pretty damn good this year. I think it's a mismatch this week, John. As good as the Eagle coaching staff is for a first-year coaching staff, the experience on the other side of the field on Sunday tips very heavily in Tampa's favor. And just because they won the Super Bowl last year, but they've got guys on that coaching staff been winning in the National Football League in their positions or equivalent positions with other teams for years. This is a mismatch between these two coaching staffs on Sunday.
Yeah, I said when we were talking to Martin, I mean, this might be the deepest coaching staff in the NFL. And we talked about, African Americans getting hired as a head coach. What if Todd Bowles gets a head coaching job? What if Byron Leftwich gets a head coaching job? Harold Godwin is their special teams coordinators, gotten interviews to be a head coach in this league. They are incredibly, they have the best coaching staff in the NFL from top to bottom when you look at proven commodities. And, I don't know if Todd Bowles can have you're a Jets guy. So, Todd is not the most, he's boring on the mic, so to speak, but he's got tremendous respect for his scheming and his ability as a defensive coach. The Eagles have been talking about it all week. Jason Kelce just raves about him. And his ability to make things difficult for the offense. So yeah, I mean they have a really, really deep coaching staff, and it starts at the top, obviously, with Bruce Arians, who's, I don't know, what is he, a 3-time coach of the year? I don't know at this point, but he's one of the best head coaches in the league, and he's got the best group of coordinators in this league.
Todd Bowles is one of those guys, and he's not the first, and he sure as hell won't be the last, who's not a really good. He's a great coordinator. He's not a head coach. I saw it firsthand with the Jets. There are some guys that just can't take that step. They can be great at a rather high step, but that final step up to running the entire show, yeah, they're just not built to be it, or they're not equipped to be it. And that's what I think about Todd Bowles. Doesn't mean he can't be the best defensive coordinator in the National Football League. He sure as hell can. But I've been there, done that. Wouldn't hire him as my head coach. There is a difference. The skill sets are similar, but they're not exactly the same. And just because you're great at one doesn't mean you're going to be great at the other. But they're not facing off against Todd Bowles, the head coach. The Eagles are facing off against Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, who Jason Kelce's right. He will try and make their life more difficult this Sunday. All right, Johnny Mac, the Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Timeout coming, and then we'll be joined by our buddy Paul Domowitch from the 33rd team and PhillyMag.com talking Eagles Birds on Birds 365.
This is Joe Krause of Krause's Coats, inviting you to donate a slightly worn coat or jacket and help veterans stay warm this winter. Go to Krause's Coats on Facebook to help those who've served. Have a happy holiday.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy sh!
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of stateside vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The city of Philadelphia sparkles during the Christmas holiday season with an array of colorful light displays and illuminated Christmas trees, donated or installed for free by the talented electricians of IBEW Local 98. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities at IBEW Local 98, visit us at www.ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
As a hardworking American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Got a triple box working here on Bird Street 65, McMullen, McDonald, and Paul Domowitch of 33rd Team FB and PhillyMag.com jumping aboard with us. Domo, good to see you. John and I were just talking about something before you came on, so I want to follow up there with you. Doug Peterson giving his walking papers, what happened here in Philadelphia, and John's opinion that it came down to Doug taking a hard line on his coaching staff and Lori saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm the owner. You can't dictate to me here, otherwise you'll be gone, Doug." And that's exactly what happened. He's now out there on the trail again. He's already talked to a couple of different teams. He might even get a couple more interviews. He's certainly, understandable, one of the best candidates. Doug going to get another gig? Did he learn from his time here in Philadelphia? Will be better served as a second place head coach? How do you think the Peterson thing's going to shake out?
Well, I don't think it's certain that he's going to get another job. I still think his best shot is Jacksonville. I don't think Chicago's a possibility. So there's a certain gamble when you take a year off. Part of it wasn't by choice with him, but if he was more aggressive, he might have gotten a job right away last year, like Andy did coming in 2012 when he was fired. So it's not, I'd put the odds right now on probably 70-30 that he gets another job, but I don't think there are a lot of teams that are considering him to be beyond Jacksonville.
That's interesting because he is getting a lot of interviews, or at least a lot of requests at this point, Damo. And there's, what do you think the disconnect is there when you look at a guy who had such success, especially building up a quarterback, and at least until it went wrong? If you think about that, the Eagles used to call it the quarterback incubator with Doug and Frank Reich and John DiFilippo. And if you have a young quarterback like Justin Fields in Chicago or something like that, it would look pretty good to me. But then you have the other end of that. Matt Nagy's an Andy Reid guy, and he's close to Doug Peterson. Maybe you want the change. What do you think gets in these owners' heads when they start thinking about head coaches and they want the young, unproven guy than the guys who's got the Lombardi trophy in his background on Zoom?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a very shallow perception of why they like certain guys. They have a look, they're vibrant. I mean,
Yeah.
look at it. Everybody looks like Sean McVay. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're a young coach right now, and you're having a certain level of success.
You got a good stubble. You got a good 3 o'clock stubble.
Yeah, I mean, Doug, in my mind, if I'm looking for a coach, is a no-brainer. I mean, I hire him. He's organized. He does a good job. And most of these teams that are looking for coaches also have quarterback problems. So, I mean, what better guy to bring in than a guy who understands quarterbacks, who's had success with them. So I don't know what the deal is. I just know that sometimes when you sit out a year, it doesn't help you.
All right, let's talk about the guy who replaced Doug Peterson. That'd be Nick Sirianni, who's got his first resume season up there pretty damn good at 9-8 with not very high expectations. To be above 500 and in the playoffs is absolutely an achievement. Will he stay the course? He talked the talk yesterday all week, his 2 appearances, about it's just got to be a process that you can't put too much emphasis. It's another game for the football team, which I say is easier said than done. Understand where it's coming from, but we all know it's a playoff game. And to pretend that it's not, I think is a little naive, or at least he's trying to get that inside his players' heads. If they fall behind 10-0, maybe 17-3 or something like that, and they're down by 2 touchdowns, and it's getting late in the first half, is he going to be able to stay disciplined enough to know his best chance is still running the football? Maybe his defense lets him down a little bit, gives up a big play. You get a tip pass or something like that for a defensive touchdown. Might even not be that the Eagles are playing that badly, but a big play goes against them. Will Sirianni be able to stay disciplined and know that his best chance is still running the football down the Bucs' throats?
Well, if they fall behind 17-3, I think we can all go home. I mean, one of the keys to this game for me is that they can't allow to happen what happened the last time. They cannot fall behind. They've got to stay with them. I mean, they can trail, but this has to be a 1-score game going into the second half. Otherwise, it just forces you to alter your game plan. It allows them to tee off on Jalen. I mean, they're not going to abandon the run like. Well, the first game, Miles ran the ball, I believe, 1 time in the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to see that kind of abandonment. But, I mean, if this becomes a two-score game, they're going to be forced to throw. So, that's why that's so important to, control the ball, keep and keep it a close game.
So you do your deep dive in the numbers each week for Philly Mag, Domo. So what was your kind of lead? And that'll be published later today. But what did you take out of this matchup? Obviously, number 1 ranked run offense for the Eagles. I think Tampa Bay's number 3. Run defense, you got Vita Vea right smack dab in the middle.
Yeah.
What is your number 1 takeaway entering this game?
Well, looking at the last game, looking at Tampa Bay's success this year, Tom Brady is almost unbeatable on 3rd and 4 or less, and the Bucs are unbeatable. I mean, he leads the league in 3rd down passing on 3rd and 4 or less. He's got. I mean, they have their success rate on in 3rd and short is like 80%. You get him beyond that. You get him in 3rd and 5 or more. This is not. I mean, because then he has to throw. You can't. You don't have to respect Fournette as much. They go to become an average football team after that offensively. And I think the Eagles need to, last game, Tampa Bay converted, I believe, 7 of 13 third downs. One of them was a kneel down at the end. So essentially it was 7 of 12, but like 6 of those were 3rd and 4 or less. And they converted 5 of those 6. The backbreaker on 3rd and long, of course, was that long throw to Antonio Brown in the 4th quarter that basically allowed Tampa Bay to run out the clock when the Eagles were trying to get the ball back. But So I mean, I think that's going to be important on Sunday that they get that, you know, they play well on first down defensively and hold Brady to put him in third and longs, where, you know, where he's not as comfortable, where they can get an inside pressure on him and maybe sack him. So, you know, that's the biggest takeaway from the first game to this one. You know, I think they can run the ball on them, even with Vita Vea. They're a tough team to run on inside, but they're very susceptible on the outside, and I think that's what you'll see on Sunday. You know, they're going to have Lane Johnson back. They didn't have him in the first game. They're gonna have Goddard back. They didn't have him in the first game. You know, those are two pretty big weapons, especially when with Johnson out, you had to move Mulatto.
Jordan,
yeah. So now you've got him back where he belongs. You know, if they don't turn the ball over, if they play well on third down, you know, they gotta puncher's chance in this game.
Damo, I've asked this of basically every guest we've had this week here on Birds 365. You mentioned who the Eagles were without in that first matchup between the Bucs and Eagles. Well, the Bucs were without a guy by the name of Gronkowski, who's been playing pretty well these last couple of weeks. There's no perfect answer, but give me your best guess scenario. How the Eagles going to try and slow, if not stop, Gronkowski?
It's going to be a real problem, Jody. I don't know that they can. You know, their linebackers have not. I mean, this is a team that's given up 13 touchdown passes to tight ends this season. You know, that's not good. So I mean, you know, no matter what Darius Slay does outside, you know, we've seen the last 2 weeks that that Brady's going to Gronk again. Because he doesn't have anybody else other than Mike Evans. You know, but he's got 200-yard games last 2 weeks, 100-yard receiving games. So you know he's going to go throw the ball to him. But even in the first game without Gronk, you know, they threw it to
O.J. Anderson, Cameron Brate.
For a touchdown. You know, they've got Cameron Brate, who's also a very good pass catching tight end. So that's going to be a problem for that defense. They haven't been able to stop tight ends all season. And it's hard to believe. I mean, Gronk isn't the player he was, but he's still damn good. He's still big. He's still, you know, I mean, if he wants the ball, they're going to get it to him. What they got to do is limit his yards after the catch. You know, that even in the Washington game 2 weeks ago, that was a concern. You saw, you know, their linebackers take so long to get to the ball, to get to the guy that catches the ball. You know, you can't do that. You need to, if you're going to play that bend but not break defense, you know, you've got to limit their yards after the catch, and they haven't done that all year.
Are you a little surprised, almost, since they lost Chris Godwin week 15? And obviously Antonio Brown, the way that's gone. They haven't gone to more 12 because they do have not only Gronk, they have Cameron Brate, they have O.J. Howard. That's as deep a group of tight ends as in this league. Yeah. And that can create its own problems, as evidence, especially with Tom Brady's strengths as a thrower at this point. And are you surprised they haven't gone to more of that as the season has gone on?
Yeah, I am, and I'm still not convinced that we won't see more of it Sunday. You know, he completed 34 passes in the first Eagles game. 22 of them were to players who are no longer on that team. So you know, so you got to make adjustments and going with more 12. Throwing to those two tight ends seems to be a logical way to go, because I think the Eagles, you know, corners are certainly going to be focused on shutting down Evans.
All right. One thing we haven't talked about yet, John or I or any of the guests we've had on, you might be a good guy to ask about this. Pressure. There's pressure on the Tampa Bay Bucs here. They are the defending Super Bowl champions. People in Tampa, and I'm sure within that locker room, want to see a back-to-back performance. The Eagles should have no pressure in this game. We know that's not the case. They made the playoffs. Now everybody wants to win. Martin Frank coming on and picking them here on Birds 365. Yeah, there's pressure on both teams, but much more so on the Bucks than the Eagles. You could even say the Eagles are playing with a little house money here since they weren't expected to make the playoffs this year. How's that manifest itself on Sunday?
Well, Brady really wilts under that pressure.
Good point.
I just don't see it. I mean, you're right. The Eagles are playing with house money. I think they're going to be loose. I think it's going to be, regardless of how this game turns out, it's going to be a positive experience for them because it gives them a taste of this. But I don't think pressure is going to have any impact on the Bucks. Bruce keeps that team pretty loose. And like I said, I mean, Brady obviously is not going to be bothered by it. So I don't expect it to be a factor.
Dama, one guy who I love as a player, nobody's talking about, who wasn't there in the first game for the Bucks as well, and I loved his dad as a player as well, as Antoine Winfield Jr. He is, to me, the most underrated player on the Bucks, maybe one of the most underrated players in the NFL. A lot of the Eagles players this week have been talking about Todd Bowles and his ability as a defensive coordinator and his ability to shift from when he's playing a team, once and then come back the second time. Jason Kelsey raved about him. Mm-hmm. He's that moving piece in the back end that could create headaches. I remember the Joe Webb game, which I'm sure you remember. I always call that the Antoine Winfield senior game, because he was really the guy who destroyed that game. Yeah. Blitzing off the slot against a mobile quarterback in Michael Vick. Is that going to be sort of Todd Bowles' ace in the hole, Antoine Winfield Jr., to try to stop Jalen Hurts?
I think it could be. Jalen's still learning. Still hasn't seen everything. And he certainly hasn't seen too many players the caliber of Winfield. You're right. Bowles is a smart guy. He's going to move him around. They're going to have to know where he is every snap. Jalen in week 6 had, next to that Giants game, the worst game of his of the season. I mean, I think he had like a 45 something passer rating. It was just, you guys know the numbers. It was an ugly day for him. He's gotten a lot better. But Todd Bowles is one of the best at, exploiting things. And he's got, in Winfield, he's got a guy that he can use in a lot of different ways. So that's going to be an interesting matchup on Sunday.
All right. I'm looking for places where I think the Eagles are at least on par or maybe even have an advantage against the Bucks. How about in the kicking game? Jake Elliott just got named Pro Football Focus, made him the number 2 kicker in football this year. He's second team. Ryan Succop's not bad. He's a solid kicker. He's money in the bank on short stuff, but he didn't make a 50-yard field goal all year. Can this come down to a late kick by Jake Elliott, Damo?
It could, Jody, but my feeling going into this game is the more we see of Jake Elliott, the less chance Eagles have of winning. I mean, they've got to convert everything into touchdowns. And that's not been something they've been doing well lately. So, that concerns me. But yeah, I mean, if it comes down to a kick at the end, there's not many other guys I'd rather kicking, getting frozen by Arians and still going out there and kicking a game on the line one than Elliott. But,
not going to be a field goal game, huh?
Better not settle for field goals. I agree with Tombo. Early, you can't settle for field goals.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting the first time Nick faces. Let's say they drive down and they're on the 8-yard line, 4th and 3. What's he going to do? We'll find out right then and there what kind of game they think this is going to be. If he kicks the field goal, then he thinks he can keep him. He thinks somehow the defense can keep the point total down and he can make it that kind of game. If he goes for it, then he knows he needs to maximize every possession.
And I think he's going to go for it, Tom.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be Brandon Staley, like 4th downs all over the place.
Yeah. And if you're a team playing with house money, that's the way to play it. You know?
Yeah.
We got nothing to lose, so go for it. And plus it shows confidence in your offensive line, which is always a good thing.
All right. We typically don't talk about weather games, but we're going to be talking about weather. Looks like it's going to rain in Tampa, but more impactful than that, Tom, it looks like it's going to be 20 to 30 mile an hour winds. And that can really affect the passing game more so than the rain. Advantage Eagles if that's the weather forecast.
Yeah, if you assume this game's going to stay close and they're going to stay committed to the run, certainly. Then they're, I don't know how I would be interested to see how that affects what, I mean, the Bucks have the lowest run play percentage in the league. I mean, they average, I think, 22 runs a game. I mean, they've got Leonard Fournette back, but still they're going to throw the ball ideally under ideal circumstances. How does the weather affect that in their mind? Do they suddenly start to run it more? If they do, that plays to the Eagles because the Eagles can stop the run against them. They didn't do a particularly good job running the ball against the Eagles the last time. I think they averaged like 2.6 yards per carry on first down. As far as the Eagles, like we just talked about, I mean, they want to run. Weather's not going to affect that except for a slippery ball and maybe some turnovers that you worry about. But so I would think a bad weather day is a good thing for the Eagles.
All right, Damo. The Eagles hopefully are going to be able to run the football effectively. We all agree that's what kind of turned that season on its ear from 2-5 to winning season and making the playoffs was their commitment to run the football. They've had 3 different guys on given Sundays who have been the big dog, who have been the lead dog and gotten the most carries. The coach hasn't really come under much scrutiny because it's worked for him in this second half. It seems like all 3 are healthy going into this game. You can even add Gainwell as a 4th. I'd be blatantly shocked if Gainwell got the most carries this Sunday. But Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, will the coach be second guessed if he decides to lean on one and they don't run the ball as effectively as they usually do?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what he does because like we talked about earlier, it's not easy to run on the Bucks inside because of Vita Vea and their linebackers. You have more success against them on the edges. And Jordan Howard is an inside runner. I mean, that's the only place he's effective. So does this game neutralize him and you don't even think about maybe even using him? I mean, Boston Scott's got a little bit more versatility. Kenny Gainwell and Sanders, obviously, but I want Gainwell active for this game because of what he can do as a receiver. So I'm going to be curious to see what Nick does. Does he suit up all 4 running backs? Does he sit down Jordan Howard? I don't think he'll sit down Kenny Gainwell. I think they saw things in that throwaway game against Dallas that they really liked about him, both as a runner and receiver. So, I'm going to be interested to see who he sits down, if he sits down a running back.
I don't think he's going to sit him down because Kenny took over for Jalen Reagor as the kickoff returner. So at the bare minimum, he's going to be just the kickoff returner. But it is interesting to see if he's going to utilize him. And this will perk Jody up because over the past couple weeks, when we do get out to practice, which isn't much these days, and by the way, the Eagles are going in the bubble again, so we can't even watch practice today. Kenny Gainwell starts out with the receivers in individual drills, and then he goes back to working with the running backs. So that to me is an indication that they're going to pull something out at some point with Kenny Gainwell as a receiver. Obviously, he did that a lot in college at Memphis. Jody's talked about Jalen Reagor's not successful and Quez Watkins and Greg Ward, JJ Arcega-Whiteside's officially out for the season now. Why not try Kenny Gainwell as a slot receiver They've been working on it. He's been in. Devontae Smith let the cat out of the bag that he's in receiver meetings at times.
Yeah,
I sense a little craziness coming.
They've used more and more empty sets with him lately.
But they generally don't use them.
I know, and I've been waiting 17 games for him to run a wheel route on somebody because I don't think there's a linebacker in this league that can stay with him, and maybe they're saving that up too. I mean, clearly Nick's got some things in his bag of tricks that he hasn't used, but yeah, I mean, my concern with empty sets is with the quarterback. He's got to be, he's got to get that ball out quickly, and I still don't have confidence that he can do that on a consistent basis. I'd rather have somebody there that can offer some protection rather than an extra receiver, because he's got guys that can get open. He's got Devonta Smith that pretty much can get open at will. He's got Goddard. So, but yeah, I mean, we're seeing more and more of Gainwell being used as in the slot in empty sets like that. So it'll be interesting what Nick does on Sunday.
All right, last one for me, Damo. From well before the draft, I've been
a huge. Dallas would have been the hardest game.
So do I, Damo. So do I.
You're just embarrassing yourself. But we won't go there. Devonta Smith, loved him before the draft. Loved the fact that the Eagles got in position to get him. Set the record for the most yards ever for a rookie receiver for the Eagles. It kind of weaselly since he did it in the 17th game, but I don't want to open up that can of worms. But truth be told, Jamar Chase had a better year than he did. Truth be told, Jalen Waddle had a better year than he did. The two guys who were drafted before him had bigger years. Does Devonta get pushy this week about just throw me the damn ball? Because do you have any faith that Quez Watkins or Jalen Reagor or my guy Greg Ward are going to make the game-changing play here? It's got to be about Devonta on the outside. Does he get in his wide receiver coach's face, the offensive coordinator's face, and go, I'm the guy. Make sure Jalen and I talk, but you guys call the plays. Call my number plenty because I'm going to deliver us a win. Any chance that happens?
Well, I mean, we have to see what Tampa's going to do to try to defend him. I still think Dallas Goedert's the guy that, if you're looking for a difference maker in the passing game, I just think he's the guy they can't stop. With Winfield, I think there's some things they can do to kind of neutralize Smith. I'm sure we're going to see our share of bubble screens on Sunday again. Whether I don't know how many or whether they'll work, but yeah. I mean, Devonta hasn't had a disappointing season in my. I mean, a lot of it is dictated by the quarterback. I mean, Jalen went through some growing pains this year, whereas, Burrow was just letting it fly in Cincinnati. So, I mean, I think Devonta is going to be, the three of them are going to be right there as great receivers in this league. But Sunday, I'm sure Devonta wants the ball. It's just a matter of what you see from that defense, because Nick, like all offensive coaches, is a take what they give you guy.
All right, Tomo. We both know the Eagles wouldn't have a chance against the Cowboys, but they're not playing the Cowboys. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's pin you down. Who's going to win this game?
Yeah, take the points, but don't take the Eagles. I think they're going to keep it close. But they're going to have to walk away, fly away from Tampa with a moral victory.
All right. McMullen's got no choice. He's got to be here next week. You do. When the Eagles lose by double digits and the 49ers go into Dallas and beat the Cowboys, the kind of rain on your parade of, the Cowboys are
what we didn't say. We said
McMullen has to show. I'm just double checking that you will show next week and go, yeah, maybe I overestimated the Dallas Cowboys.
No, here's what I said. I can't speak to Damo, but we'll keep you on for this. I said the Eagles don't match up well with the Cowboys. Not necessarily everybody else. It's a sliding scale, Jody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, My
The
power
Cowboys
rank-
sure as hell did kick the shit out of the practice squad Eagles last week. I got to give the Cowboys that much. That was a major blowout over the Eagles practice squad. They
We got
should
it.
be
We
tremendously proud of that
Damo,
accomplishment.
we have succeeded. We have Jody Curson again. We have succeeded.
You gotta love it.
You're both ridiculous. Damo, enjoy the game on Sunday. Yes, we will have you back next week. Yes, you expected the show. And yes, you're going to eat crow. So thank you very much for coming on today and doubling down. Do appreciate that. You got nerve. Be back next week to face the justice.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take care.
Paul Domowitch of PhillyMag.com and also the 33rd Team FB. All right, I tip my hand. You know, I'm picking the Bucks by double digits. So you got to come back and see what McMullen has to say. He and his Philly voice guys. I got a question for him about his placing in the list of the Philly voice pickers. We'll come back with our picks to wrap things up here on Birds 365.
This is Joe Krause of Krause's Coats, inviting you to donate a slightly worn coat or jacket and help veterans stay warm this winter. Go to Krause's Coats on Facebook to help those who've served. Have a happy holiday.
At Stateside Vodka, every new customer gets the world's best rocks glass, free.
What's that?
A rocks glass?
You're telling me that bottle is cut in half?
You could say that.
Holy shit.
And you're telling me I can get one of these glasses for free?
That's right. One free rocks glass per customer with each first-time purchase of Stateside Vodka. So good, it just disappears.
The city of Philadelphia sparkles during the Christmas holiday season with an array of colorful light displays and illuminated Christmas trees, donated or installed for free by the talented electricians of IBEW Local 98. To learn more about who we are, what we do, and career opportunities at IBEW Local 98, visit us at www.ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
As a hardworking American, you've never experienced how tough life can be until now. A catastrophic injury while working on the job. A personal injury from someone else's negligence. Turned away by other law firms in the region who didn't bother to learn your story. It's time to meet the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm and managing partner Brian Fritz. Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm. Find out why they say, "We got this."
Go for the midnight dares. Go for the game. Go for the hits. Go for the fans. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
J-Mac here with you. With J-Mac. McMullen and McDonald last couple of minutes here getting ready for Eagles and Bucks on Sunday. One last thing about what we've been discussing for the better part of a week now. What do you think the spread would be if the Eagles were playing in Dallas this week instead?
Yeah, we already talked about that. It would be lower, but I think Tampa Bay has more cachet. They're the reigning Super Bowl champions. They have Tom Brady. And I don't think, and I think, more people default to Tom Brady. And Rightfully so, to be honest. His history is his history. So I think the Eagles, I think people remember, I'm immersed in the Eagles. The Eagles don't match up with the Cowboys. As I always use my boxing analogy, styles make fights. Bettors are looking at the entire league, and they're probably not as immersed in one team as another team. So that doesn't shake my belief in they don't match up with the Cowboys. They don't match up with the Cowboys. Period.
They match up with the Bucks.
They match up better with the Bucks. They don't match up with the Bucks. They match up better with the Bucks than with the Cowboys. Everything is relative, Jody. I
understand that. I just think you're well over evaluating the Dallas Cowboys.
As I said, now some other people said they match up best with the Bucks. I didn't go that far.
No.
I said I'd much rather would play Arizona. And then I was wavering, and I'll admit I was wavering on the Rams, but after the Rams, what they did against San Francisco, then I said, no, I'd rather have the Rams. So, I mean, I would rather, of the four teams, of the four potential possibilities, I'd put Tampa Bay at 3. I don't think they match up well with them. I just think they match up better with them than they match up with Dallas. And you're right, week 17 doesn't matter because it's the varsity, week 18, excuse me. It's the varsity versus the junior varsity. But they blew them out the first time too. They destroyed them. I mean, to me, with those weapons, specifically the receivers, even without Michael Gallup, with Cedric Wilson and Trayvon Diggs, who intercepts the Eagles every time he plays them, and Micah Parsons, who wasn't even there, I just don't think they match up with the Dallas Cowboys.
What is it about the 49ers that they have that matches up better against the Cowboys than the Eagles?
Well, I didn't say they matched up better. You assumed I said that. I said, to me, the 49ers versus the Cowboys has nothing to do with my thought process on the Eagles not matching up with the Cowboys. I don't know the 49ers well enough to know. I do have a lot of respect for Kyle Shanahan and the way he schemes up his offense, but I don't have a lot of respect for Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm not saying the Cowboys should win that game. If they don't win that game, Mike McCarthy might not have a job if they don't win that game. They should win that game. But as far as I don't follow the 49ers close enough to say they match up well with the Cowboys or they don't match up well with the Cowboys. I do follow the Eagles closely enough, and I know for damn sure they don't match up with the Dallas Cowboys right now.
Here's the reason why I think the Eagles could match up, and if this week had been Eagles-Cowboys, they would have had a chance to win. I certainly believe the Tampa defense is better at stopping the run than the Cowboy defense is at stopping the run. And everything with the Philadelphia Eagles right now starts with their ability to run the football. Everything else runs off that. Their entire season turned on that when they decided we got to become a run-first offense, and it gave them the ability to finish as a winning team and make the playoffs, qualify for the postseason. It all starts right there, and I think the
but I think there's different.
The Dallas Cowboys are plain and simple.
I think there's different ways to win games, and I agree with you. I think Tampa Bay.
When was the last time the Eagles won a game passing the football?
No, but what I'm saying is, if you'll let me finish. If the Cowboys are scoring 40 points, it doesn't matter if the Eagles can run the football. Then let them run the football. They're going to be 2 scores down. Let them keep running the football. They can't stop the Eagles. They can't stop the Cowboys. The Eagles can't stop the Cowboys offensively. They can't do it. So, are they going to win a 45-40 game? I don't think they can. I don't think they can win that type of game. I don't think many people think they can win that type of game. And I know damn sure they can't stop the Dallas Cowboys. Because those receivers, they are just running free, whether the junior varsity was out there or the varsity was out there, running free, roaming free.
With the receivers he has and the receivers the guy down in Tampa has, I'm going to take the Bucs over the Cowboys. Passing game. I'll take Brady over Dak Prescott. Even acknowledging that Dak's got good weapons, Brady will make more.
Well, I would say this: you would really like the Bucs if Tom Brady had Dak Prescott's weapons. I know that.
True, but Brady plays for the Bucs. Dak plays for the Cowboys. I know your pick was already in, Philly Voice. Are you sticking with that pick or are you changing it?
I am sticking with that pick, and it tells you that the Eagles don't match up well with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They just match up a little better, but I have the Eagles losing the football game 33-22.
We are in the same neighborhood, not the exact same pew, but the same neighborhood. Not quite as high scoring a game as you have. I do have the Eagles losing by double digits, nearing 2 touchdowns. 30-17 is my final score, which is right around the under-over is 46. So I got it at 47. So I'm not feeling the under or the over. If I had to make a play, I would take the Bucs and lay the 8.5 points. But let me get on record right here, right now, Eagle fans. I know you're all going, Jody Mack, you're picking the Bucs. I'm taking the 49ers over the Cowboys.
There we go.
San Francisco goes into Dallas and beats the Johnny Mack, Paul Domowitch, overrated Cowboys on Sunday after. Just to give you a little salve on the wounds that you're trying
well,
to heal from.
I know most Eagles fans would like that. Sometimes they like if the Cowboys lose more than the Eagles win. I don't care who wins. I just think they're a really talented football team right now.
They've got some skilled players, but I don't know they put it together as a team. And yes, major advantage coaching staff, San Francisco over Dallas. And that's why I think
that I would agree with. That I would agree.
We'll find out if it's a big factor or not. All right, J Mac, you're out on Monday. You're flying home during the show, right?
Yeah, 7 a.m. Hopefully.
All
Fingers
right,
crossed. I will be in the air.
Have a safe trip down. Looking forward to getting you back here on Tuesday on Birds 365, which, we're going to be here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, next week. Even if the Eagles aren't playing, we're going nowhere fast here on Birds 365.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.